The DC Dice Masters Superman Kryptonite Crisis set is just around the corner, and so it's time to take a look at some more cards. Today, we're going to be focusing on taking a look at the titular character Superman through the lens of the comic book lore. Yes, hello, welcome, folks. It's Chris here from the Ministry of Dice, back again today with more spoiler shenanigan video presentation goodies. And we're taking a look at the Superman Kryptonite Crisis set today. I'm going to be revealing some cards that focus on the titular character Superman and talk a little bit about why they're so themey and such appropriate characters and cards to have in a set about Superman. So let's not dilly-dally around. I know you're all eager to take a quick look, so let's get into it and take a look at some Superman Kryptonite Crisis cards. Now then, this is Superman Kryptonite Crisis. That's the name of the set. We're focusing on the theme of the titular character, Superman. So, of course, I'm going to have to start with the Man of Steel himself. And as of date of recording this video, there have been two Superman rarities publicly revealed, the common and the super rare. Now, I've got a long lead-in time here, so the uncommon and the rare may be revealed in the interim between me recording this and this video going live. But at the moment, it's just these two that I can talk about. And one of them is particularly themey in terms of the game text. Both are themey in terms of the subtitles. Let's have a quick look. We've got the common here, Superman Last Son, 4-cost shield with the Super Friends affiliation. He reads, while Superman is active, your opponent can't target your Lois Lane character dice. You can't field Superman unless you control 2 or more Super Friends character dice. So really interesting there. Very themey game text, which I'll come back to in a moment. And then the super rare, Superman New Krypton, 5-cost shield with the Super Friends affiliation. And I warn you folks, I'm about to say the words reserve pool a couple of times now, so follow along. If a Superman die is in your reserve pool and there are no energy in your reserve pool, you may field all of the character dice in your reserve pool for free. And he's got some classic Superman stats there, 146, 267, 278. So I think I'd be hard-pressed right now to find anyone watching this video who doesn't really know the Superman mythology, so I'm not going to dwell on it. First appeared in Action Comics issue number 1 back in 1938. Character was created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, and has obviously been an iconic comic book superhero character through the decades subsequent. The whole kind of background, the subtitle there, Last Son, calls it out. He's the last son of the planet Krypton. He's an alien immigrant here on the planet Earth. His home planet has an apocalyptic event, and his father, Jor-El, puts him in the kind of space baby carriage and fires him off towards Earth with the view that Kal-El, Superman, can survive and continue the legacy of Krypton beyond its destruction. And various different interpretations have interpreted what caused the destruction of Krypton in different ways. You know, there's been environmental disasters. There's been acts of God. There's been over-industrialization. There's been war. Different interpretations there. But the subtitle Last Son is referencing the fact that he is the last son of Krypton. However, the super rare there with the phrase New Krypton is referencing another little bit of interesting lore. So through comic book history, there has been the Glass City of Candor. It's a Kryptonian city that was stolen and miniaturized by the Superman villain Brainiac. He goes around planets before he destroys them and takes a sample from each planet and puts them in these glass jars. And various events happen, and Superman gets his hands on the city of Candor, the miniaturized city of Candor, and tries to revive the city many times over, and eventually succeeds and creates a Kryptonian colony on Earth, which is referenced as New Krypton, which I think is interesting. So a whole kind of element of Superman mythology and lore tied into the subtitles there. The fact that he's the last son of Krypton, and then the New Krypton subtitle referencing the fact that there is this colony called New Krypton on the planet of Earth. So, yeah, that's really interesting. However, there's another bit of themey lore tied into these cards. If we look at the common there, the common has, while Superman is active, your opponent can't target your Lois Lane character dice. And, of course, Lois Lane is a hugely significant character to Superman. And here we have some Lois Lane cards, all very thematically tied in to either the comic book lore or thematically tied in through their game texts. We've got the common. Let's begin with the common there on the left-hand side of the screen. Lois Lane Army Brat, 2-cost fist with the Super Friends affiliation. While Lois Lane is active, your Superman dice get +1 attack and +1 defense. Now, Lois Lane has been Clark Kent and Superman's girlfriend, and now wife, and the mother of his child. And so they are, right from day dot, these two characters have been firmly intertwined and a big part of the Superman mythology. And every cartoon, every movie has always tied in a Lois Lane character. It's a big integral part of the Superman mythology. And of course, the Commons there call this out with this synergy between the two, whereby Superman protects Lois Lane. You can't target her because, she gets up to all sorts of journalistic shenanigans and then calls upon him to be a big dumb muscle man. And she's giving him a stat bump because she inspires him. She is his muse. She's a huge part of his life, which is really fantastic. Then we've got Lois Lane, Author X, 3-cost fist with the Super Friends affiliation. When fielded, up to 1 target character die can't block this turn. If you targeted a character die with this ability, Lois Lane can't attack this turn. And again, that's really interesting. It's like she's, the pen is mightier than the sword, that she's managed to prevent someone from blocking by, causing them pain through the power of her writing. And again, both those subtitles are very thematically connected to events in the comic book lore. Army Brat, for example, is a reference to the fact that Lois Lane's father is General Sam Lane, and he's been a character that has come back around, again, in various interpretations, because, of course, DC is always really messy with retconning and reinterpretations of characters, but he's come back time and time again as this influence on her life. He's been very disapproving. Every interpretation of him has been very disapproving of Lois Lane's relationship with Clark Kent and Lois Lane's relationship with Superman. Some interpretations to an extreme level, in fact. Sam Lane is a bit of a villainous character, oftentimes an antagonist. Some of the military operations as a general that he's been in charge of have been very anti-alien, intergalactic immigrant kind of stuff. At one point, what was it called now? Project 7734, which was, go and have a look, but it's, he's trying to just kill all alien immigrants on Earth. So he's been a very antagonistic character, and the subtitle there is obviously referencing, Army Brat is referencing the fact that as a child, Sam Lane raised Lois and her sister independently as a single parent father, and she was obviously dragged around all these different army bases and locations as his job demanded. So I think that's really interesting that her father's a US general, and he had quite a significant role to play in some events that have happened in kind of some of Lois Lane's own narrative story arcs, in her own title and in the Checkmate stuff that's taking place right now. The other one, Author X there, Lois Lane, this is interesting. So there's an event in the DC universe called Convergence where because again, they like multiversal bullshit, and all these universes collide, and Lois Lane and Clark Kent end up in another world where there is an already existing Superman and an already existing Lois Lane. So they take the name Clark White and Lois White. Lois Lane is pregnant at the time with Jonathan Kent, their son, who is now the Superboy. And so they take up a home in California and live a kind of peaceful family life. And Author X, Lois still writes, but she doesn't use, obviously, the name Lois Lane because there's another Lois Lane existing in that universe. So she writes under the title Author X. So not only has she got this kind of, paralyzing people with the power of her words in the theme in the game text, but there's also this reference to the writery element of the character in the subtitle there, and around a very specific event in the comic book lore, which I think is really interesting. So there we go, Lois Lane. And of course, Lois Lane and Superman met at the Daily Planet. He as the journalist Clark Kent in his secret identity, Smallville, as she calls him, and she as the kind of roving superstar reporter at the Daily Planet. Now, this is a card that's definitely going to see play. It's a basic action card, 4 cost, draw 2 dice, prep up to 2 of them, roll the remainder. So it's just got a lot of ramp and churn capability there. But the Daily Planet is a significant part of the Superman comic book lore. Many of the ancillary characters involved in the Superman stories comes into play through their relationships, their work colleagues and friends at the Daily Planet. Perry White as the chief editor, a really significant character. We're about to talk about Jimmy Olsen in a second. Cat Grant is another one that immediately springs to mind. It's a central location that appears a great deal in the comic books, the cartoons, TV shows, the movies. It's a source of is the location where the growing relationship between Clark Kent and Lois Lane takes place, and their roles as journalists are often driving forces behind many of the storylines that take place. So just really great to see the Daily Planet getting a part of the Dice Masters experience there in a Superman set. I think a Superman set without the Daily Planet would be remiss, but where's my Perry White? I want my Perry White, and I want my Bibbo and my Maxima. Come on, whiz kids, catch up. Incidentally, there's no Bibbo, no Maxima in the set. So yeah, there you go, Daily Planet, just a quick little detour there. We've seen this card already. This was revealed by WizKids themselves a little while ago. However, I mentioned Jimmy Olsen. Let's go back to Jimmy Olsen. And here is a couple of Jimmy Olsen cards. Jimmy Olsen Photographer. This is the common 2-cost fist with the Super Friends affiliation. Jimmy Olsen can't be targeted by opposing global abilities. And then I have the uncommon here for you all. Jimmy Olsen Sci-Fi Enthusiast. 2-cost fist with the Super Friends affiliation. Again, while Jimmy Olsen is active, your Superman, Supergirl and Lois Lane character dice get +1 attack and +1 defense. And then check this global out, folks. Global, pay a shield. The first character die you field this turn is free. Woo! That guy's going to see some play. So, yeah, super great cards in terms of table time. The fact that we've got a Super Friends affiliated team kind of synergy building up here. You know, get your Lois Lane and your Jimmy Olsen out so that you can then field the cheap but beefy 4-cost Superman, and then they're both buffing him up and making him even stronger. And the fact that Jimmy Olsen comes with the global so that you can get him out for free to handle some of those painful fielding costs on the Superman is just a lovely bit of combo synergy there, and I can't wait to start building some Super Friends teams with them. However, I'm here to talk about the comic book lore and take a look at it through the lens of the source material. So let's talk a little bit about Jimmy Olsen Photographer. Now, a little fun fact for you all, actually. So Jimmy Olsen didn't become a photographer until much later in the character's life in the comic books. In fact, Jimmy Olsen didn't actually appear in the comic books first. He appeared in the Superman radio shows, The Adventures of Superman, whenever that was, in the 50s maybe. However, in Action Comics, there had been an office intern, a little like young teenage lad with a bow tie, who was then later retconned to be Jimmy Olsen because the character from the radio show was so popular. So he was never called out by name for the first 15 years of Superman Action Comics. It wasn't until the character became popular and they retconned him in. And then at that point, they retconned him in as an intern journalist. He was a cub reporter being mentored by Clark Kent and Lois Lane in the art of journalism. And so this whole photographer thing didn't really happen. He appeared in the Richard Donner films as a photographer at the newspaper. And then through various events, he lost his job and then got offered one back after doing some freelance work for a period of time. So he's working as a working freelance reporter and then gets offered his job back at the Daily Planet as a photographer because people associated Jimmy Olsen with the photographer character from the Richard Donner films. And I think this was in the 90s, they shifted him, the 80s, sorry, shifted him into the photographer character. So they just slowly but surely started to introduce the camera more and more into his storylines and as a prop in the artwork. And then he's now become a full-blown photographer, and quite famously was the photographer in the Death of Superman series, and he features a lot in the background art as taking pictures. So yeah, fun fact for you all there, folks. So that's the photographer bit in there. The Jimmy Olsen Sci-Fi Enthusiast is probably the most themey of the two there in terms of his game text as well as the subtitle, because it's Superman's best friend, Jimmy Olsen, Superman's best pal, who is he's a tinkerer in his original form, pre-Crisis and Infinite Earth. The very early Jimmy Olsen was a tinkerer, a bit of a mechanic. He used to make like radio watches so that he and Superman could keep in touch, and he had his own comic book series. And his own comic book series was very kind of 1950s mystery theatre, sci-fi theatre, kind of pulpy in tone. All sorts of weird stuff going on, like he drunk a serum that turned him into Elastic Lad, and he got turned into a turtle at one point, and there was lots of robot-y type stuff going on. Very science fiction focused. Now, it's my belief that that's the inspiration for that subtitle, and of course the game text acknowledging the fact that he is Superman's best pal. So yeah, Jimmy Olsen, Sci-Fi Enthusiast, really Really great to see him in set, really great to see him significant, and loving the way there's a kind of archetype forming in the single affiliation kind of themey space, which is great for fun, casual, constructed play, but also in the draft context, because it gives you a little bit of something to focus your drafting on, which I like to do. So yeah, there you go. There's Jimmy Olsen, sci-fi enthusiast, and Jimmy Olsen, photographer. Jimmy Olsen there calls out, of course, Superman, Supergirl, and Lois Lane. We know that Superman and Lois Lane are in set, but we haven't seen any Supergirls yet, so keep an eye out for more news and sneak peeks of Supergirls down the line. But there is one other character not listed on that card that Jimmy Olsen's game text can in fact impact, and that character is this one here, Conor Kent, Con-L. Oh, I had a weird little bonus animation there. What was that all about? I don't remember programming that in. That common Jimmy Olsen's just lifted up the page for some reason. What a pro. Drop down below, give me a like for the professionalism of my videos. But here we go, Conor Kent, Con-L, 5-cost shield, another Super Friends affiliated character. Conor Kent counts as Superman for the effects on your other cards. And look at these stats, 155, 277, 388. So another big beefy boy. So Jimmy Olsen's game effect there, where he's giving Superman, Supergirl, and Lois Lane characterized +1/+1, is also giving Conor Kent Con-L +1/+1, which is really interesting. Now, Conor Kent is a super interesting character from the comic book lore and has been around for many, many years, since the 90s. He first appeared as a kind of Superboy character in the Return of Superman, the Death and Return of Superman. Huge story arc that went through the 90s there. So as you may or may not know, Superman died in the 90s, and upon his death, 4 other Supermen appeared in Metropolis, each with their own agenda, each with their own reason for existing. And Superboy here, Conor Kent, was a clone created by a science lab called Cadmus Labs, who had been trying to clone and replicate Superman for many, many years. And while they hadn't actually fully pinned it down, they were upon Superman's death, they were able to use some DNA to sort of figure it out and make a bit of a clone. Although he's not a proper clone, but he kind of is a proper clone. And he kind of does have Superman's powers, but he kind of doesn't, because he's using this tactile telekinesis stuff. And he, at that point, was this kind of cocky, leather jacket wearing, Mohican haired kind of kid Superman, who was always a bit kind of teenage and a bit horny and had some weird and wonderful storylines. It was actually not a bad book in the 90s. I read it for a number of years following the Death and Return of Superman storyline. But then he evolved. He grew up, he got into his teenage years. He's been a significant part of the Young Justice team. He's been a significant part of the Teen Titans team, significant part of the Titans team. And of course, the game text is very, very themey there, because he is, to all intents and purposes, Superman's clone. And later on down the line, Superman kind of acknowledges him as a family member, sort of treats him. They set him up as a nephew or a cousin. I've forgotten specifically which relative. And he actually moves into the farmhouse and lives with Jonathan and Martha Kent for a number of years. And that's where he's kind of takes on board that more kind of wholesome farm boy image with the black T-shirt and the Superman logo and the jeans and stuff. The subtitle there, Con-L, is Superman's kind of through a number of convoluted events involving Krypton and the Fortress of Solitude and the Eradicator and various Kryptonian technology and stuff. He ends up going back in time and living a period of life as a Kryptonian by the name of Con-L, who's a distant relative of Kal-El, of course, Superman. And then when he gets kind of back into his modern day consciousness and back in the current day, he and Superman agrees that he takes on the name, and he's now actually kind of part of the Kryptonian legacy that Superman is continuing here on Earth, which is really interesting. So yeah, he's not really a Kryptonian, but he's been kind of christened. Christened? That's probably not the right. You get what I mean. Superman kind of awarded him the Kryptonian name as part of this kind of this heartfelt emotional moment where he's fully accepted Connor as a family member and not just some kind of weird clone thing. And again, he's been a significant character that's turned up in the cartoons and in the TV shows. There's a version of Conor Kent in the Titan series on Netflix right now. There's a version of him in the Young Justice cartoon series. So he's been around, but he's definitely been a character we've seen evolve a great deal in comic book terms in a short period of time, sort of moving from this cocky, youthful teenager, reckless, all the way through to a much more mature character, and really interesting to see his growth there. But I'll tell you what, folks, Conor Kent is not the only clone of Superman knocking around. In fact, cloning Superman is a thing, and of course, I could only be referring to the most well-known clone of Superman here. And now we've got Bizarro in the set. I've got 2 cards on screen for you to take a look at now, the common and the uncommon. I believe the common has already been revealed. Breath Weapon X, I think, had that one in an article they did a couple of months back. That's Arctic Vision with 5-cost shield. When fielded, put a stun token on an opposing character card. And this is where you could prevent that character then. It's stunned, and therefore you can prevent it from attacking and blocking, and your opponent can pay 2 to remove it. And then I have the uncommon 5-cost shield with the subtitle New Outlaw, and I want to focus on that thematically for a minute. And this reads, if Superman die takes damage, increase Bizarro's attack by the same amount. And he's another beefy boy, 155, 276 and 287. Looking forward to seeing some Super Friends versus Wrestlers battles there. Now, Bizarro first appeared in the 50s in a title called Superboy. Now, this was a kind of flashback retelling of the story of Clark Kent becoming Superboy during his time in Smallville. And a scientist there that Superboy was friendly with, who right now on camera, I've just blanked. What the hell's that scientist's name? Completely gone. Let me know in the comments down below, comic nerds, if someone can remember the name of that scientist. But anyway, this guy, I can remember the name of the technology he created because he built this thing called the duplicating ray. And in a lab experiment gone wrong, he fires the duplicating ray, not maliciously, as part of a thing they're doing. And he manages to duplicate Superboy, but it's gone wrong, and he's created a Bizarro. And then there's a strange adventure that happens around Smallville. Bizarro sort of disappears. But then years and years later, he comes back. Lex Luthor discovers the existence of the duplicating ray, replicates the technology for himself, and of course uses it on Superman, the mature Superman in Metropolis, and that is when the character of Bizarro that we more readily recognise from things like the cartoons and from comic book interpretations that's kind of more bedded into people's consciousness, has come from. This kind of reverse speak simpleton who's trying to do good but has been manipulated by Lex Luthor into doing villainous things through this kind of opposite land, and he's appeared as a Superman villain many, many times. However, this one here that's depicted in this card is particularly interesting, and the subtitle on the uncommon calls it out with the title New Outlaw, because this Bizarro is actually part of a super team called the Outlaws. It's made up of the Red Hood, Jason Todd, ex-Robin, Artemis, a Amazonian peer of Wonder Woman's from, I think she's from Barnum Migdal, actually. I don't think she's from Themyscira, but I can't get into that now. I'm sorry. If you don't know what Barnum Migdal is, that's like a whole thing. So maybe another video for another day. We'll see. And then Bizarro, and they as a trio, they form the Outlaws, and they've had many adventures. In fact, it's only, 5 years old? It's been around for 5 years? It's a very new-ish title, certainly in the context of, comic books and long, lengthy running titles. And this Bizarro is interesting because he finds a way, through various events, he finds a way to some intellect and ceases being the kind of opposite land simpleton, the kind of caricature of idiot caricature of Superman that the character of Bizarro has become to be known as, and has actually becomes the kind of brains behind the outlaw operation, with Artemis and the Red Hood being the brawn, which I think is an interesting little twist, and that creates some strange dynamics within the team. It's actually a decent title. Certainly the earlier part of its run. The later part goes a bit squiffy, but yeah, the earlier part is definitely interesting. So the subtitle there is really interesting because it calls out the fact, and you can see in the card art, because there's Red Hood and Artemis in the background, this new interpretation, this new version of Bizarro that's currently out and about in the world of DC Comics. However, its game text is much more connected to the Bizarro of old. You know, that when Superman takes damage, Bizarro's attack gets increased, this kind of opposite land thing that's going on. And while whether that has any kind of constructed relevance or not is yet to be seen, but that certainly could be one that has a place in drafting the set, because there's a good chance there's going to be Superman characters knocking around. So there you go. Okay, I've got a basic action for you guys next, a really super themey one. I love this one. It's a 2-cost basic action called Banishment, and it reads: put target character die from your opponent's prep area into their use pile. Now, it's really super themey because what it's depicting there on the card art is a very significant piece of Superman kind of mythology called the Phantom Zone, which to all intents and purposes is a Kryptonian prison. So, and characters, villains, get banished to this prison, hence the thematic kind of relevance and the lovely little comic book lore tie-in there. Now, back in the day, on Krypton, they'd abolished the death sentence, but they had this pocket dimension called the Phantom Zone that they used to chuck in their most violent, horrible, irredeemable criminals. And they were fired in using a device called the Phantom Zone projector, often depicted as like little two-handled projectory thing. And so it's significant for a couple of reasons. I'll dwell on it very briefly. The first is that at the point at which Krypton was destroyed, any of the criminals residing in the Phantom Zone were also surviving Kryptonians, above and beyond Superman, of course, and the colonists in the Candor colony. So there is a proportion of Kryptonians, living Kryptonians, but sort of in this frozen pocket dimension thing, who are still alive over and above what we know of, walking the earth, as it were. So that's really interesting, and that's also been a source for many writers to kind of dip into and draw Kryptonian characters out. General Zod is perhaps one of the most well-known and significant Phantom Zone escapees in the comic book. And in fact, Superman has now sort of picked up this mantle of his father as the scientist in charge of the Phantom Zone technology, and has been monitoring the sentences of individuals in the Phantom Zone and been releasing them when their sentence is up. And there's a number of ex-criminals from the Phantom Zone living at the Candor New Krypton colony, which has introduced some interesting storylines and some interesting narrative threads. But also, secondly, is significant, very significant to the character of Superman, because there's been these sort of moral dilemmas that Superman has faced about what to do with certain villains, and whether exiling them to the Phantom Zone is the right thing to do. But are they too powerful to be just imprisoned in a normal kind of human-built Earth-based prison, and are they still a risk, and should he fire them into the Phantom Zone? Not that the Phantom Zone has actually proved to be particularly capable at retaining its prisoners, might I say, but there you go. So there's been this kind of moral dilemma, and it's been an interesting kind of, because he can't kill them. He still, he refuses to kill them. He's a heroic character, but do we have the technology and the capability to truly restrict the criminal activity of these most disgustingly murderous types who are also super powerful? So it's been significant from that point of view there. So loving this one because this basic action has really, really plugged into that comic book source material, and that's really exciting to me. That's really exciting. Right, folks, I think that brings me to the end. It does. There we go. There's my Superman Kryptonite Crisis, looking at it through the lens of the comic book source material. I hope you enjoyed not only taking a look at some of the new cards there, but also understanding why they're so thematic and relevant to the set. Go on down below, drop a note in the comments for me. Any combos that spring to mind with the game text, of course, I will post them on the BritRoller6.com unreleased set spoilers. So if you head on over to BritRoller6.com, you'll find in the header bar a section called unreleased set spoilers, and there's a Kryptonite Crisis gallery in there so that you can go back and have a closer look at the game text. I've obviously been looking at it very much from this comic booky point of view. And give me a like, give me a sub. It's a huge help to the channel, help me get in front of other eyeballs. And before you leave, stick around for a second, because YouTube is about to recommend to you another video that its algorithmic doohickey thingamajigabobs thinks that you will enjoy. So you'll find that on my little frame at the close of the video. So yeah, there we go. I've been Chris, otherwise known as True Mr. 6, and I'll see you over at BritRoller6.com, over on the Ministry of Dice podcast, or here on this YouTube channel sometime soon. Thanks for watching, folks.